Hey, what's good, my brothers and sisters? This week's spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 227 were absolutely insane. There is so much tension surrounding this battle, and this particular chapter was like a constant back and forth between godlike anomalies of Jujutsu. So let's break it down the best we can given these crazy spoilers and leaks. This chapter we start with some very cool color spreads, and I appreciate the detail and the style that Gege has made. And you can see that this is right after chapter 226, as Sukuna is healing his broken face after eating a point-blank red to the noggin. But now the battle continues. Kusakabe is confused at how Gojo healed his burnt out curse technique using reverse curse technique as such an insane feat. Yuta goes on to explain it's not impossible, but being burnt out is a totally different experience than from healing the body. Yuta likens it to machinery that overheats, so you have to wait for the process to cool down. It's brought out by Maki and Yuta that reverse curse technique can fix a burnt out curse technique, but in a sense it cannot cool it down. Yuta's understanding of the process seems to be a bit more iffy or misinterpreted, but Yuta thinks this is a really overwhelming process. And I think Yuta is for sure a die-hard Gojo fan. Of course, all the students are, but I have to say Yuta has shown just more genuine emotion and reaction during these last two chapters than in the entirety of the post-Shibuya arcs. Moving on though, Gojo notices Sukuna can expand the range of his malevolent shrine, which is how he beat his domain earlier. As of now, Gojo has replenished his curse technique and both fighters have plenty left in the tank. And as you can see, Gojo is standing just outside the visible effective range of Malevolent Shrine, as Sukuna can adjust the range accordingly. When Sukuna begins to expand his territory to hit Gojo, instead of fleeing or running away like Gojo can do, instead Gojo chants Infinite Void and uses his domain expansion again. Obviously, his peers like Kusakabe are freaking out and questioning Gojo's stupidity because this domain matchup is very incompatible. However, they quickly understand Gojo's plan, and as we can see, Gojo managed to reverse his domain's barrier's conditions, meaning the shell won't break because it is instead strong from attacks from the outside. It is pretty insane how Gojo can do this on the fly, but is it enough? Gojo taunts Sukuna saying, "Let's start all over." Now in domain expansion round 2, Gojo and Sukuna are on equal footing with their sure hits canceling each other out, and much like Dagon's battle in Shibuya, Gojo and Sukuna are able to engage in fierce hand-to-hand combat with their own clashing domain expansions. Like, how badass is that? Gojo notices something strange though, with Sukuna's cursed energy output increasing and his blows beginning to bypass infinity. Gojo is very surprised that Sukuna is now using simultaneously domain amplification inside a freaking domain expansion. Just so it's made clear, the narration elaborates that what you cannot use during domain amplification is the innate technique that comes from within the user's body. However, once a curse technique is already imbued into a domain barrier, the story changes. So this simply just answers why domain amplification cannot be used with a curse technique directly. It only restricts the innate technique within the user's own body to envelop that blank domain for curse technique neutralization. So the only way to use amplification with a curse technique is to already imbue that curse technique inside a domain expansion of your own. After realizing this, Gojo piles it on. He goes hard and heavy to overwhelm Sukuna with physical strikes. However, even when his hits land, Sukuna's strategy is very peculiar, as Gojo senses Sukuna's sure hit technique is actually turned off inside that domain, as Sukuna uses extreme finesse to get around Gojo. And I'm telling you guys, this is probably the sauciest, coldest, downright most amazing maneuvers in Jujutsu Kaisen. Sukuna's battle IQ is like top 1. This is the true king. Kenjaku goes on to explain this, and of course Kenjaku's creepy ass is just watching this live feed on Mei's Sorcerer Plus live streaming service. It's kind of funny, but for real, Kenjaku reiterates that Gojo's unlimited void doesn't affect Gojo or anyone Gojo touches. So knowing that piece of information, after Yuji's experience, in order for Sukuna to break Gojo's domain expansion from the outside, he had to narrow down its effective range to increase power. So since he turned off his sure hit effect from inside of Gojo's domain expansion, he was able to increase the sure hit power outside the barrier shell. And with no sure hit inside to protect himself from Unlimited Void's effects, Sukuna flawlessly managed to keep in physical contact with Gojo in order to keep safe from his Unlimited Void sure hit effect. So now, since Sukuna is perfectly keeping in constant touch with Gojo and Malevolent Shrine has a reinforced sure hit outside the domain expansion has now collapsed again for a second time. Sukuna jokingly mocks Gojo, repeating, "Let's start all over," as Gojo gets shredded once again by Malevolent Shrine. Bro, these monsters are absolutely crazy. The shit talk is crazy, it's incredibly petty. The feats are crazy, everything is like crazy hype and good right now. And what a fantastic fighting chapter. And you can really tell these two are going back and forth. The sorcerers take notice of this, and Kashimo steps forward and frankly and very casually just mentions, "If Gojo dies, I'm really gonna go out there and fight him. Don't bother me." Basically, don't try and stop me. So wild. No way Kashimo just said that. No way the Kashimo tier god just uttered such disrespect, such downplay for the honored one. We haven't seen the wheel, Maharaga, 10 shadows, the shrine technique, open, nothing. And we already got some Gojo doubters this early. I don't know if y'all got Kashimo stocks, but this dude is so ready for Sukuna that it's actually chilling just how genuine Kashimo is about facing Sukuna. That Binding Vow curse technique must really be something special, because Blood might actually have convinced himself that he can do better than Gojo right now or something. Back to the main battle though, Sukuna hits Gojo with a wave of slashes after Gojo's domain fell, and to Sukuna's surprise, Gojo uses Falling Blossom Emotion, and the cuts that Gojo suffered from were shallow. If you remember, Falling Blossom Emotion was a anti-domain countermeasure created by the big three families and regarded as secret arts or esoteric techniques, meaning they were passed down only within the big three clans, hence why most of the group was so clueless about it. Falling Blossom Emotion is a technique that emits an aura of cursed energy shrouded across the user, and the cursed energy automatically strikes a sure hit attack right upon contact, like some auto-targeting system. Gojo learned this technique as a kid and said that he stopped using it after learning his own refined domain expansion, but it's not too bad to use, at least for now. Much like Simple Domain, Falling Blossom Emotion lets Gojo retain his burnt out curse technique and recover his curse technique using reverse curse technique. Kusakabe says a drawback is how it won't work on complex domain sure hit attacks like Unlimited Void, but simple curse technique types like Dagon or Sukuna's have actual tangible attacks to counter with Falling Blossom Emotion. Jozo also mentioned that Gojo is still receiving damage because the domain's output is too much for the technique to oppose, so he can't completely negate it, but it is enough for the level that it's at now for Gojo to recover his curse technique with reverse curse, just giving him enough time. Gojo then opts to use his domain expansion for a third time, so we're 2-0 so far, but third time's a charm, right? This domain is different though. The veil or the shell is much larger than a standard barrier, and as such, it's almost as if Gojo is trying to swallow Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine. Expanding a barrier this big causes the quality to become low, and we see the shell is much thinner. However, instead of breaking, little by little, Unlimited Void's shell begins to condense and shrink until it is extremely small, and we leave the chapter off in a cliffhanger as there is no break next week, and the endnote says the density is increasing for the battle with the strongest. That was really cool. I think just like Dagon's domain expansion, the size and coordinates are different inside a domain than from the outside. But now Gojo's barrier is ultra dense, at least on the outside. It is extremely compact, and that probably makes it extremely hard to break even for Sukuna. It kind of reminds me of Perfect Sphere or Yuki's Black Hole, but I think this is where Gojo should get his chance to do some real damage. I'm really not trying to see a 3-0 for a domain battle in Sukuna's favor. Before ending it though, for my initial thoughts, I am just a tad bit tilted that Gojo is continuously losing in domain expansion battles, and really he's been on the defensive ever since domains were involved. I'm not going to be that guy and say, oh, Sukuna isn't trying, he's just playing with Gojo, but there is still some back and forth happening. Gojo stated 2 times that this battle will be a little difficult. It is tiring. And I don't think Sukuna is having the easiest time either. Domains are absolute, and Sukuna is making an effort to avoid Gojo's sure hit because he probably knows how dangerous and complex it is. Gojo realized that since Sukuna's domain expansion and curse technique is so simple that he can survive it. But what's scary is that Dismantle and Cleave is only one aspect of Sukuna's curse technique. Now I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna need a little bit more out of Sukuna than what we've seen so far, than just this. Characters like Kashimo are already saying, fine, I'll do it myself, as if they would do better in Gojo's situation. And that is kinda scary. Gojo has a point to prove. He has to push Sukuna further than anyone. He is literally set up, and Kenjaku hinted that Gojo is going to be the one to nerf or incapacitate Sukuna to a point where his students can fight him and maybe they can save Megumi or go along with their plans. So he has to push him so much further. Imagine not seeing Sukuna at least use every tool that he has. It could be just sheer pride for how Sukuna is refusing to reveal his own curse technique or use Megumi's curse technique. In all honesty, it's pretty overkill how many options Sukuna has, but it would kind of show that he need that power to beat Gojo in the first place. But whatever Sukuna is doing now is really not enough to kill Gojo, and Gojo pretty much had an answer for everything. Likewise, Sukuna had an answer to Gojo's answer. It's almost pretty petty how prideful both of them are, because no matter how good you think either Gojo or Sukuna are doing, they literally do not care. Common sense does not apply to the strongest. So with that being said, that's it for this chapter. I wish you guys a very good day to both the Gojo enjoyers and the Sukuna superfans. Though with the Kashimo fans, the stock's honestly looking mad good right now. And I know anything Kashimo does, Akari fans will try anything to leech onto that hype, but nah, Curse Technique Kashimo is definitely something else. But this was a really fun chapter though. So far, this fight is really peak. It might be like top 5 in my opinion. It's a really peak fight, but it feels more like a prideful grudge match between the strongest, and I definitely need to see more from it. But you awesome brothers and sisters, take care. This has been Enemy Stand User, and I'll see you awesome guys in the next one. Bye-bye.